Well, I can tell you that the actual number of effects shots in Lost in Space is 767. It may be a smaller count than you've heard speculated, but I believe it's still a record. And turning out 767 shots in 6 months still means that we are doing on average 3 to 4 shots a day, which is quite unheard of in sort of digital post terms. So it was an awful lot of work, and it was an awful lot of work in terms of complexity as well. It wasn't just one type of shot. We had all sorts of different types of shots. We had sequences like the bubble fighter, which are 90% CG. Almost the entire environment around the actors was put in post. All the live action were shots of Don West, played by Matt LeBlanc, against green screen in a small rig. After that, all the backgrounds were put in.
I'm gonna give you a little kiss. Now, don't take this the wrong way.
Impact in 5 seconds.
we had a space alien, an alien space monkey called Blorp, who, once again, I think we imbued with a character in a completely different way, using new technology, new motion capture technology.
We used real-time puppetry to achieve some of the shots, which was mixed with frame-by-frame animation, and that's what these controls. So to begin with, I will perform the head and neck, which the controls are programmed to do. You control these programs, say this control is going to do the neck, this control will do head, left, right, and up, down. So I'll record that layer first, then I'll add to that by doing the mouth. So then the controls will become, this will become the mouth control, this one will become mouth shapes. Then the next layer, you go into eyes. Then these controls, this will do eye direction, this will do pupils, then you have blinks with the middle finger, and then expressions as well, which I control with my thumb. So you'll get, oh. So each direction of the control will give you a different expression. And then I have to go through, and he's reacting to that, to Matt LeBlanc, and he comes down and he's actually looking at the candy bar, and now he's going to take a bite, so and he's biting into it, and he's chomping onto the bar. And now he's really going to go crazy, so he's flapping his head around, and then he's going to chew some more, because it's really difficult. Remember, he's just bitten into the whole candy bar here. And then he's chewing some more, and it's starting to go down, and it's getting easier. Now he's going to swallow, and then he's going to burp. It's a lot slower in half time. And then that's it.
On board the Proteus, the Robinson family encounter the alien spiders, which are clamped on the side of the Proteus like barnacles, and on the exterior, all they betray is these triangular barnacle-like husks. But those legs sprout out from the points of that triangle, and they crawl in through the hull and attack the Robinson family. The design of the spiders is a totally impractical creature, a three-legged creature with each leg splitting into two legs. So the walk cycle is a real cheat. It's an impossible walk cycle. But once again, we just wanted to go for a design that we hadn't seen before. We said, this is science fiction, this is science fantasy, why can't we go with something we've never seen before? We don't have to follow conventional rules of biology. These creatures can be any space creature we want. We had CG characters such as Spider-Smith, in which I believe we're cutting edge in that we've motion captured a Gary Oldman performance and tried to keep that in the Spider-Smith character.
So what we actually did was we took a cyberware scan. So this is basically a laser. Gary sat in a chair, a laser passes around his head and fires a laser at him, which gives us a 3D representation of Gary's head. That also gives us a colour map. So our initial tests were all done using this. There was actually no model creation done whatsoever. It was all digitally taken from. But what we then did was model our version of Gary over the top of Gary Oldman. Obviously, we can then shade this up. The dots are purely used to get the motion from Gary to our head. That's all they're used for. What we then do is obviously texture it up and paint it up so that it actually looks like a creature.
And this is quite an early test. You can see some of the lip sync. Yeah, that's all driven from the motion capture. Even the jaw, there's still actually motion capture. He did open his mouth on that one. It's just Lee took over the motion.
Look around you, Doctor, at this hostile world. Do you really think a boy could have survived all alone?
The lighting tools available in CG are just terrible. You cannot mimic this, because it's just too much number crunching to do this, or this. Diffuse light sources. All they know is a single type of light source, and everything that you do on something like Spider-Smith is a cheat to try and match real lighting. You're just trying to do anything you can to try and match real lighting. You just don't have the tools, don't have the proper tools. To work out this light here, you need to do what's called radiosity, which is where the computer works out the light source and how it's diffused, how it bounces off my hand and reflects on my face, and that's an awful lot of number crunching to do. So you break it down into something much more simple. You say that's a light source and that's a light source, and you put a small one here and a big one over there, and that's all you can do in CG. You can't replicate all the subtle little bits of lighting that are going on here in this room. The bounce that's coming off this silver reflector over here, the diffuse light through that piece of spun or diffuser over there, the blue light that's coming off this blue carpet here, the green kick I'm getting underneath my jaw here from my top. You can't replicate those things. Well, the only way you can replicate them is by putting a light in for every one of those sources. And so when it came to doing something like Spidersmith at the end, we took notes of all the lights on the set, but what you can't take notes for really are how the lights came down and they hit that piece of metal, and that bounced back, or that silver piece of flat and it bounced back off that. And we take a lot of reference photographs and we have to cheat it. Comparisons between miniature and CG are interesting. I find that shooting motion control miniatures is a very time-consuming process. You'll be lucky to shoot more than one element a day. So if you have the Jupiter 2 flying through a cavern, that's just the Jupiter 2 element that's been photographed. You've still got to shoot the cavern background, and you've got to shoot potential additional rocks, flame elements, and so on. And you build up a component by component a shot. You can probably create all those elements in one hit in CG. But I find that at a point when miniatures and CG are starting to blur, and it's starting to be questionable just how much you do in miniature these days, the key thing is that I instantly buy a miniature straight away when I see a shot, when I see a composite. Whereas you're always, my general rule is, if a miniature's 90% successful in science fantasy terms, I buy that more than a 90% successful CG shot. And I always find myself having to work really hard to make the CG look real, and that's always the hardest part to break. Whereas, because you've actually shot a real object, even if you know it's a miniature because it's the Jupiter 2 in space, it's a real object. It's got real characteristics to it. It photographs like a real object, and you buy that much more quickly than you do something created in CG. And in fact, one of the more successful things that we did was we actually took photos of our 6-foot motion control hero miniature of the Jupiter 2. We took top views, bottom views, side views, front-on views, back-end views, and we mapped those photos with all the complexity of the model onto a really simple wireframe shape. I would love to do a sequel. I'd love to do it 10 times better than the work I did on this. It was fun and hard work to work with Stephen Hopkins. He had great and huge ideas, the scope of which took me aback at the beginning. But when we got into the flow of that, I really liked it. But I'd love to, and I think this is always the visual effects supervisor's lament, I'd have loved to have had more time to finesse the work. I think what we've done is astonishing in the time and in the diversity, but it's the universal lament. If only we could have had a bit more time. And I would hope that with a sequel, we could go in there and take some of the things we've learned and go a bit further on those, push the technology a bit again, and really finesse the work.